Okay, welcome to the Esports Research Report, presented by myself, Dr. Brian McCauley, here at the Jönköping University in Sweden, and produced by Nicholas Hendelkens, Communications Lead for the Esports Research Network. Today's guest is Enrico Strock, future Dr. Enrico Strock, but for now a PhD student and associate researcher at Agder University in Norway, and also works as a global IT product manager at Volkswagen Group. Very impressive. So, welcome, Enrico. And can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thanks, first of all, for having me here. Yeah, like you said, I'm Enrico. My main job is being a product manager at Volkswagen, precisely for the HR IT world. And as I'm a couple of years already in the HR world, I was already connected to everything that had to do with science. And I studied IT management in a master a couple of years back, and directly connected to my work as an associate researcher. I like video games, and by coincidence, I got connected with both worlds. So I like HR, I like IT, and I like video games. And I met a wonderful man that is called Tobias Scholz, and he gave me the opportunity to start my PhD at the University of Actor. And yeah, I'm here today to tell a bit about my research project.
So, I do believe it's creating a learning framework for esports teams, the stacked approach.
Yeah, that's
So,
right.
tell us about that.
Yeah, the main point was when I started having a look at esport teams, I had the feeling, and especially when I was setting up one really grassroots level team at Volkswagen, I had the feeling they don't have a real structure how to manage the team. And I was always into project management, and I was handling different frameworks, how to organize teams. And I was thinking, isn't there something for esport teams as well? And I'm a football coach, and there everything is set in stone, and you have clear rules, and you know how to guide people through. But there was nothing for esport teams, and that made me curious. And there I started going further and really drawing the line towards: is there something existing, or is there a gap in research?
I mean, we talk about football, you say it's always known, but football is an ever evolving science of marginal gains, and it's not static either, but it does have a legacy of hundreds of years and the
Yes.
evolution. And Pep Guardiola coming after Arsene Wenger came after Ferguson and all these great coaches, and it continues to evolve. So, but what you're saying is that esports teams had literally zilch or nothing really at all that
Yeah.
they could build upon.
So the feeling was when I started having a closer look at esport teams that they say, "Oh, coach is a former player and he knows the best because he played good." And something that I learned, especially you mentioned a couple of trainers, and one of my favorite examples because I see him as a role model is Jose Mourinho. He's someone who was never a good player. He was maybe on grassroots level, some non-league teams, but he's an amazing coach
Was
because
an amazing coach.
he still is an amazing coach, I would say, because he brings something else to the team, which is motivation and something that I call that he is doing personal mastery on each and every player. And this is something that I see not represented in esport teams. And the fun fact is, when I started digging deeper into research, I found out okay, especially this point, other researchers have come across as well because they figured out hey, there are a lot of great coaches because they have been great players, but there's no one really having all these ideas. And then the one idea was to connect can I connect sports to esports? And their research already gave me the answer, not 100%. But then I started from the different angle because I said, maybe I can come from the project management angle. Because sitting in front of the computer is sitting in front of the computer, you know? And that brought me to my framework.
The stacked approach. I mean, project management is a challenging thing. It's not my strengths at all. I mean, obviously, given your CV, you're actually pretty decent at it, given where you work for Volkswagen and what you're doing in your life. So, how do you connect project management to esports teams
Yeah,
learning from their experiences?
yeah. My main thinking was esport teams are somehow small project teams. On project teams, you bring together a couple of people and they work on a specific goal. And this is the same for esport teams. And if you see the fluctuation that is there within the teams, it is really also on a limited time frame that they're working together. And project management, and especially the agile project management world where I'm coming from, is most of the time bringing defined roles, defined processes, and I saw a connect because kind of processes and kind of roles is something that you have in esports as well. So I was thinking, what if I take one of the most used agile project management frameworks, which is Scrum, and compare it? And this was my first scientific paper that I did. I was comparing Scrum to learning, first of all, to prove that Scrum can enable learning. And as I've proven that, and hopefully it will be submitted soon, it is submitted but or approved soon, was to really compare that towards esports learning practices.
I
And
just, can you go back for a second? What is the Scrum approach as someone who's not project manager academic?
yeah, very important question. Scrum is a project framework that is quite common, where you have certain roles, three if you want. You have certain rituals that you go through, and it's lightweight. It has 7 pages. It's not much to read, and it is very, very common when you go to agile software development. And this was kind of baseline where I started from developing my framework, comparing all the things. And yeah, this brought me up to a certain point because I started then having a look at organizational psychology and as well into the whole area of learning. And one thing there is this whole Scrum framework has something very powerful because it says our main idea is to inspect and adapt all the time. So we have a closer look, we adjust. And this is what teams are, so esport teams especially are doing. They go into a match. After the match, they have a look, okay, what went good, what went bad, what do we need to change for next time? And if you put that into the same context and try to compare it, find similarities, and then go further, I saw a potential. And this was the way I choose for creating the stacked framework.
I mean, I've published on teams in Valorant and the possibility to to use Valorant as a platform for training organizational teams. And even last night I was watching a live match, and there was the team lost their chosen map pick, Haven, and the commentator sort of said, it seems like that they said, well, this map, but we're bringing in a player in an emergency, so we need to practice the two maps that might come up that we don't know. And then they actually lost their sort of map, and it seemed like there was that there is a kind of some sort of framework they have to develop their teams, but that, and I see it's in a lot of games that it's ever evolving. There's no structure
Yes.
to it, and it's kind of still a bit loose, just from my casual observations watching live professional matches.
Yeah, absolutely. And there I just wanted to give a bit of structure that if this situation is coming during a match, I cannot give you any structure. But everything around that is doing your whole week, I can give you a structure. I can give you a structure when it comes to what are we doing after a match. And this is what I did. And I will just jump a bit into the framework because I talked a bit around the framework, but maybe just directly go into it. The main idea is that the team is no longer only just playing games, but they are always having a goal. So kind of a learning goal, if you want. So because we are talking about a learning framework. So before you go into a match, the whole team agrees on what our main focus we want to achieve in this match. And this could be different from player by player. It doesn't matter if it's, for example, I come from League of Legends, and therefore I take that example most of the time. The jungler is working on one specific point that is important for him, and the bottom laner is working on some specific point that is working for him.
Uh,
Furthermore, there's something that we want to do better at the team.
so we're
And this
talking about not in the actual tournament itself, but in
in
the
the game and in the
scrimmages. The
scrimmage. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the tournament, you can't set goals, but at the end of the day, you want to win it. But when it comes to training, you really want to have things that you want to focus on. And it should be transparent to each and every one. Because what I see as well is, and something so simple that you know what are the strengths and what are the weaknesses of your teammates. It helps you a lot to know what are the strengths and what are the weaknesses of your teammates. But this is for most teams, it's not transparent. And this is also a value that comes from Scrum because their transparency is quite important. And this is something that I want to bring in with this stacked framework as well. And therefore, one crucial thing within the stacked framework is the so-called quest log, because the whole team writes down what are we doing, who is working on what, Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. And we do this in a quest planning that is, and there a framework has always degrees of freedom, but the main idea is to have it one planning for 2 weeks, where we have a closer look, what are the topics we want to focus on the next 2 weeks? And then during that 2 weeks, we're having a daily exchange. It doesn't necessarily need to be daily, but at least a couple of touch points over the week that we align ourselves. How is it going? Do we need to change something, especially when you have games in the meantime? It could be that your focus is totally changing, that you're no longer focusing on shot calling, for example, but the meta has changed. There was a new patch, and we need to focus on the patch so that we are prepared for the next matchup. And this is something that needs to be there. And something where I also started was to say we need a round recap. This is how I called it. Pretty simple. After a matchup, we come together 15 minutes, have a short exchange. What went good? What went bad? What do we need different next time? So really pretty straightforward. Time boxed 15 minutes. Let's have a look how it worked. And this structure, and this was great. I was talking to different teams and they told me, hey, this is comparable to something that I already have, but no one named it as a framework. Especially this having a reflection after the matchup and also having this kind of daily or frequent exchange on how is everyone going. And the last thing that I also brought within the framework is I call it XP boost, because after these 2 weeks where you said, hey, this is what we want to do in the next 2 weeks, I want to do a reflection. How did it work? Did we have too much on our schedule? Was it too ambitious what we tried? Did we perform bad? Do we think about changing our structure, things like that? And this is another topic that I brought to the table, the XP boost, where we really have a look at that. And then you can now connect it to the everyone who is aware of the Scrum framework, for example. There's exactly the same. You have this planning for 2 weeks, then you have this reflection, what went good, and the dailies in the meantime. So this is quite comparable, and it was kind of borrowed from there, if you want so.
So just for anyone, like even people interested from a research perspective, I mean, which teams are you actually actively working with as part of this paper, as part of your PhD?
So I was asking everyone who wanted to participate. So we were reaching out to some universal teams. We were sending out the framework to some grassroots teams. I was pretty open LinkedIn. Here you go. Everyone who wants to participate, use the framework, have fun. And I currently received back 4 teams who are interested in working on this, and they are currently in a phase where they're trying it out. I said, hey, this is the framework. 4 to 6 weeks, or better saying 6 to 8 weeks is the correct time frame. Use it and give me feedback if it's working or not, and what has improved. And currently, they are in the try and error phase.
Well, which actual esports? We're talking League of Legends, Dota, Valorant.
Yeah.
Where are we talking?
So everything would be working, to be honest. So it could be working on a Rocket League team, it could be working on a League of Legends team, and it could be working on a Valorant team. And so far, I received feedback from 3 League of Legends team and 1 Valorant team. And as it is voluntary, I cannot push anyone. The only one that we're going to push, because I have someone who is doing his bachelor degree at the university who wants to do it with the universal team. And there it's more a bit of a pushy.
Yeah, I mean, so you're how far into the sort of picture are you with the current way it's working at this point in time as we're filming this?
So as we're filming it, we are directly in the experiment phase. They are trying it out, and I'm really curious to see the results.
So the full empirical picture is sort of still emerging, right?
Still emerging. Yeah.
And you're drawing on organizational psychology and agile frameworks. Just for anyone like me who doesn't know, what's an agile framework?
An agile framework is compared to a classical IT or project management frameworks, a framework that has higher cycles where you reflect on topics. This is kind of, but the definition of agile, there is an agile manifesto where you have defined several rules, but does it mean to be agile? But at the end of the day, it comes to working differently with each other, more collaborative, don't stick to rules, rethink everything, more like what I just mentioned, inspect and adapt, and transparency. This is the whole thing of agile if you want to have it in a nutshell. And therefore, this is absolutely helpful using this. And from organizational psychology, pretty simple. Experiential learning is something that I used, and something that I like a lot is the idea from Senji and the personal mastery, that everyone wants to be the best version of himself. And if you bring this mindset towards players, that they want to improve themselves intrinsically, this is worth more than anything else.
I mean, I actually taught my marketing communications class recently how the manosphere and those toxic influencers use the growth mindset to enable negative things and have a negative influence on the world. But it was actually what actually showed them was this universal growth mindset to improve it, this to do this. The core of their message, and even though they use it for evil, is a very positive thing. When I was showing how advertising works, and it is a kind of hopefully almost a universal desire for most people, particularly students and sports people, that you always want to improve. So saying that, what does it actually look like in practice? What does a team do differently on, like, say, day one versus at the very end in week 6 or week 8? Or
Yeah. So if you just take it the first time and you have a team that comes together, what it will help you is it's first of all giving you a structure. And it makes the reflection that I mentioned a lot of times already intentional. It's pretty normal that you do that you reflect on yourself, that you reflect on the actions that you did together as a team. And then having a shared goal to say, this is what we're currently this week focusing on. I've seen a lot of teams, and I was coaching one of our university teams as well. I see them, first thing you did, you started the team, everyone wants to play. They just jump directly in, we want to play. But this is no learning, because you just start playing. Okay, maybe you have as a side effect something that you learn, but only if someone is really looking at it. Otherwise, they're just focusing on fun. But it's okay that it is the case, it is. But what we want to do on the long term, and therefore I say it takes some time until everything is running, I estimate roughly 6 weeks, then you feel the difference because you reflect after every matchup. You talk quite often to each other and say, hey, what have we worked on? And you plan together and reflect at the end of the day, what have you achieved within the last 2 weeks? So this is something that is crucial. And especially thinking of what went wrong is pretty simple. But on the other hand, also thinking of what went good. And at the end of the day, I can promise you, if you have a look at the XP boost, at the things you achieved in the 2 weeks, as a lot. And it gives you a great feeling within that team to say, hey, this is what we worked on. Impressive. Because normally, if you're just playing a game, you don't feel it. But if you have written it down, it helps you a lot. It's like someone who's doing post-its on his desk and is rolling them down together and putting them in the trash. It gives you a great feeling. And this is exactly the same there. And
I mean, I'm
mhm.
listening to you here, and I've got a 10-year-old son, and soon enough I'm going to have to put him into Counter Strike or Valorant, but I'm a little bit terrified to put him in randomly with learning foreign swear words and hearing toxic people, which is what is stopping me. But as I'm listening to this, I'm seeing that this is goes beyond professional esports potentially, and could be integrated into even primary schools, but high schools, to actually engender a personal growth and mastery as part of school curriculums to develop 21st century skills.
Sure, absolutely. And this is something where I always see the connection. I know, for example, Scrum is used at universities as a framework for teaching things that they're going iterative forward. And it could be the same for Stacked. The only thing that Stack brings on top is somehow that it is more lightweight than Scrum. And one of the frameworks comes from, oh, it comes from IT software. I'm not sure if I touch it. And here it's from esport. I know there's also a barrier if you want to touch it, but it's closer to being used by each and everyone. And I also see, I call it the solo queue mode. I also see an opportunity that you do this to organize yourself as a single person. So it doesn't stop with esports. It could go beyond, but esports is currently my area of research where I want to prove that this framework is working.
I just love everything that has the potential to enhance
Yeah.
society because esports is so useful. I mean, you're. I'm going to point at you when I'm speaking to people or presenting, going, look at this guy Enrico. Like, he's doing this thing. We could have kids actually developing in schools, not just professional esports teams. So you've built it in 3 tiers.
Yes.
As the team's adaptive strategy. Can you explain what that's all about and the flexibility of that?
And this is the perfect example about a research journey. I started building that framework and it was full blown amazingly. I had a great feeling and I was reaching out to teams. They were telling me it's a banger, this framework, but no one wants to volunteer to use it. Some were
Yeah.
saying, hey, they're fragments that we're already using. Everyone was hyped, but no one wanted to try. And for a researcher with a framework that no one wants to try, you're lost. You will not make it. And I was sitting there with a friend and I was talking to him, why isn't it working? I was a bit frustrated, to be honest. And he told me, have you ever heard of Bushnell's Law? I said, who? Bushnell is a guy who was the head of Atari. And he has the law that video games need to be easy to learn and hard to master. This is why every video game has a tutorial. And I was thinking of it and I thought, he is very, very right because I started too complex. I wanted too much too soon and I need to start easy. And therefore, I have now a 3-tier approach. And the first tier, if you want, I called it base stack, is pretty simple. It's just like create the list of quests you're working on and have a frequent exchange. No more, no less. If you feel comfortable with that and you see, this is giving us a good structure, you can go ahead. Go into the round recaps after a matchup, come together, talk to each other. Have a clear planning what you're working on. This is the next stage. And before you then go to the full stacked approach, take some time. And the framework, currently as it is written, it gives you the opportunities to say, you can use parts of it, but you don't have to. And I think this is one of the strengths because this is more towards gamers. It doesn't matter which video game you're using, especially when you are a casual gamer, you will not use every functionality that the game is giving you. You're using it as long as it makes fun, and it should not feel like work. This is why I had to set up this tier approach. And it makes total sense. I'm expecting from each and everyone using this framework to inspect and adapt constantly and reflect on the decisions they made. And the same counts for me. I know as soon as my PhD is out and is done, the framework is not done. The framework will evolve over time and year after year based on the feedback that I will receive. This is for certain.
I mean, Enrico, this has been fantastic, and I just like to say, anyone listening to this, that Enrico has provided his contact details below this podcast or his YouTube video, and I think anyone who wants to reach out and inquire if they can have a go at building in stacks, and I say scaffolding in education, you say stack, you're stacking things on top of each other. I mean, I think it's fantastic. So, thank you, Enrico. Anyone wants to reach out, please feel free to hit up Enrico with the contact details he's provided, and he'll be happy to have a discussion with you about how his actually very amazing project can not save the world, but help the world at least.